Imagine this. You and I are part of a new design team for watches. We're sitting around a conference room table. We have our budget. We know exactly what we're going to sell the watch for. Now we have to answer one question. Where do we spend the money? Hey, there you are, and welcome to My Dude Watch. My name is Jason, and every watch you've ever owned started out the same way, a brand with a budget. Today we're looking at watches and we're determining what's in and what's out because brands can't maximize everything. Do you spend the money on sapphire crystal, maybe a better movement, a premium bracelet? How about exceptional finishing, more water resistance? And if you do, what gets left out because there isn't enough money for everything? Today we're looking at 4 different brands with 4 different budgets, and we're going to see how they maximize their money. This is a different kind of video, but I think you'll like it. This is going to be fun. You know the deal. Grab a snack, pull up a chair, and let's talk watches. And before we get started, let's do a really quick wrist check. Today I'm wearing this beautiful Hiltz timepiece. I'm still getting to know this guy. I'll have a full review up next week, and that should be fun. Now, in the meantime, let's design some watches. Let's start out with a budget of less than $100, and if we're sitting around that conference room table, what should your customers reasonably expect for their money? Now, there are a lot of watches that could represent this price range, but for today's conversation, let's go with one of the most popular. This is the Casio Duro. And to begin with, let's take a look at the decisions that Casio made when they designed it, because they could have made a very different watch. The first thing I notice isn't what it doesn't have, but what Casio chose to prioritize. A trusted brand, 200 meters of water resistance, a screw-down crown with quartz accuracy, all wrapped up into a simple, timeless dive watch design. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, Jason, why didn't they give it sapphire crystal? And that's a fair question. But if Casio had upgraded the sapphire, what else would change? What would you have sacrificed for the sapphire crystal? Only Casio knows. Maybe the price, maybe something had to give. These aren't accidental decisions. This is where Casio decided to spend the money. Now let's look at another design team that has the exact same budget. I mean the exact same budget. They also have a very different philosophy, where Casio asked, how do we build the most trusted dive watch? Steel Dive asked, how do we give the watch buyer as much watch as possible for the money? So this is exactly what the SD1970 represents. Let's look at what they built. This watch has AR-coated sapphire crystal and NH35 automatic movement, excellent lume, a surprisingly good bracelet, and built like a tank. So on paper, it's incredibly impressive. Those weren't accidental decisions either. Steel Dive simply looked at the same budget and spent the money differently. Neither company is wrong. They simply answer the same question in different ways. If you were sitting in that conference room, which direction would you have gone? Now let's double the budget, and there are a ton of watches that would have represented this category perfectly fine. But for today's conversation, let's use the Citizen ProMaster model NY0040. Now let's take a look at the decisions Citizen made when they designed it, because if they had made different decisions, they wouldn't have been able to produce this watch. This is what Citizen built. Right away, one thing stands out. And that's the mineral crystal, and I know exactly what you're thinking. Why did they use mineral crystal? Stay with me because that's what makes this comparison interesting. Look at everything else. A proven automatic movement, a case design that's been refined over decades, 200 meters of water resistance, excellent quality control, and a reputation that has been built over many years. Those weren't accidental decisions. They were Citizen deciding how to spend their money. Now let's hear from another design team. They have exactly the same budget, clearly a different philosophy. Instead of asking, how do we build confidence? They asked, how do we give the watch buyer as much watch as possible for their money? That's exactly what Proxima PX1697 represents. Now look at what they built. A PT5000 movement, sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating, a beautiful enamel dial, and an on-the-fly adjustable clasp, all with excellent finishing. Again, those weren't accidental decisions. Proxima simply spent the budget somewhere else. Neither company is wrong. They simply answered the question in different ways. Now let's increase the budget again, and this is where I think the conversation starts to change. There are several watches that could represent this price range, But for today's conversation, let's use the Seiko SRPK 29. And let's begin with the decision Seiko made when they designed it, because they could have made a different watch, but they chose this one. When you examine what Seiko built, the first thing I notice is how everything comes together. The case, the transitions between the brushed and polished surfaces, the way the bracelet fits in the case, the overall refinement. Then you notice the movement. You get the 4R36. They chose Hardlex crystal instead of sapphire. And again, I know what some of you are thinking, why not sapphire? And that's a fair question. But if Seiko had upgraded the crystal, what else would have to go? Would the bracelet have been the same? Would the case finishing be the same? Would the watch still feel as cohesive? Only Seiko knows. But one thing is certain, they were intentional decisions. This is where Seiko decided to spend the money. Now, let's hear from another design team. Same budget, different philosophy. However, instead of asking, how do we build a classic Seiko? They asked, how do we give the watch buyer as much as possible for their money? That's exactly what the Chronos L6036 represents. Now, let's take a look at what they built. They gave you a PT5000 movement, AR-coated sapphire crystal, excellent finishing, and an outstanding bracelet. The first time I handled one of these, it was so impressive. Chronos simply decided to spend the money somewhere else besides where Seiko spent it. And again, neither company is wrong. Now we're going to mosey on down the hallway and step into a conference room. This is where they're building a watch that will retail for several $100s. This is a $300 to $500 budget conference room. At this price, we're buying more than specifications. You're buying philosophy. There are several excellent watches that would represent this price range beautifully. But for today, let's use the Tissot Gentleman Powermatic 80. I want to take a look at the decisions that Tissot made when they designed it, because they could have made different decisions, and with that, you'd get a different watch. Take a look at what Tissot built. They built Swiss Heritage, a proven Powermatic 80 movement, excellent quality control, a worldwide service network, a watch from a company that's been building watches for generations. So now we know where Tissot decided to spend the money. Now let's hear from another design team. Again, same budget, but different philosophy. Instead of asking, how do we build another Swiss watch? They asked, how do we give the watch buyer as much watch as possible for the money? That's exactly what this San Martin represents. This is the SN0148. Now, this is an original design. They chose a Miyota 9015 movement, AR-coated sapphire crystal, 200 meters of water resistance, excellent finishing, and an exceptional bracelet. This is where San Martin chose to spend their money, where Tissot chose something different. San Martin isn't trying to be a cheaper Tissot. They're trying to earn a seat at the same table. Neither company is wrong. They simply answer the same questions in different ways. Every one of these brands started out with the same problem: how to give the customer the watch that they envision for the amount of money they have in their budget. Every watch starts the same way: a design team, a conference room table, and a budget. Hey, you made it to the end of another video. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed what you saw today, please take the time to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It'll only take you a second, but it really does help. All right, we checked the time, and it is time to wrap it up, so we will close the show. My name is Jason with My Dude Watch. We'll do it all again next time, but wait, don't forget, dudes can't be late.